ask any sim racer what their dream setup would be if money was no concern, and I bet the answer will quite often look something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, the v-racing.se Formula 1 simulator. What's up everybody and welcome to the Sim channel. I'm in Stockholm at the moment and I had a chance to take this incredible Formula 1 simulator for a spin. But before we get into the driving impressions, I had Derek of v-racing.se sit down with me to tell us all about the simulator and the company behind it. As usual, you can find the timestamps in the description below. Alright, I'm here with Derek of v-racing.se and we're going to talk a little bit about the simulator that we see right here behind us. First of all, tell us a little bit about what we're actually seeing here.
We are a hardware developer in Stockholm, Sweden. What we're looking behind us is our two Formula motion simulators. We've actually been around since 2010, but the first 3 or 4 years was a development process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably, I'd say the past 5 years we've been specifically into the different hardware components.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's maybe first talk about the simulators and the hardware, because I guess that's what most of you guys are interested in, and then we'll get to what this company is all about. So, I mean, I guess tell us about this nice large simulator that we see.
Yeah, well, this was 2010, so we took one of the Formula 1 cars, modern at that time, and we kind of like took the dimensions from those cars.
It wasn't any specific car?
It was the Renault,
okay.
Actually, from 2010. So we kind of went from that, and obviously our simulator cockpit is more spacious than the real one. We have a lot of different customers, a lot of different sizes and stuff like that. So we've made everything a little bit bigger, you can definitely say. But we went from that car to make our own design. So basically it's our own design, but we kind of took dimensions from the modern day car. And we built the form, and now we're able to manufacture the cockpits as well.
Yeah, okay, so you told me before these are made of fiberglass, right?
Yeah.
So you have a mold and then you put the fiberglass in to make these beautiful Formula 1 shaped cockpits, and you put them on a 3-axis motion platform, is that right?
Right, it's a D-box system. There's 4 actuators and you get the 3 degrees of freedom from the movement. Yeah, we tested a lot of different systems, and we landed on the D-box because of it's very customer friendly. It's not dangerous to stand around the simulator. You can have friends and family looking, hanging around the simulator up close.
Yeah.
As compared to other systems where you have to have a safety kind of zone.
Yeah.
So this is very advantageous if you're going to be thinking about race center, race room kind of setups.
Yeah. All right. So that would be one of the things that you had in mind when you built these 4.
Yeah. Well, since the beginning, we've always had this main goal or a vision, you could say, that is to make motorsport more accessible to, if you want to say, normal people like us.
Yeah.
We want to have
people without $1 million to spend.
Yeah. We want to have real motorsport available for people. So that's also obviously a major consideration for us. The D-box is an affordable system that fits well into the business model.
Right. So we talked about the chassis, we talked about the motion platform. Now, one thing that is pretty special about what we're seeing behind us here is then the screen solution that you have.
Well, we've got a 3-projector system. Each projector is running at 1280 pixels. So I guess the next step we're considering now is going up to a 3 x 19 20 setup. But what you're going to see today is a 3x1280, and we're using pixel warp to kind of blend the three pictures together.
Right, and about what kind of field of view do we get from these? How many degrees is that?
We've probably got around 160 degree. So maybe 80 degrees that way and 80 degrees that way.
It's probably like even more than you could see with a helmet on from a real race car, right? A real Formula car. With the hands, you can't really turn your neck very much. So, yeah, that should cover everything.
You're getting your view.
Yeah, definitely. It should cover everything that you need. I guess interesting to many viewers will also be the pedals on the wheel that you're using, and we have basically pulled them up here on this desk.
Well, it's been a long process of kind of like buying other wheels and other pedals, and kind of learning a lot. And for us, the most important thing is that this stuff doesn't break while we have customers that are paying us to drive these simulators. So that's the most important thing for us, is the quality. We didn't necessarily make these to sell mainstream. So this pedal setup, for example, this is made specifically for our simulators here behind us. You could say that if you have a similar kind of cockpit where you're sitting low, this will work on basically any rig that you would have at home. It's got the base plate that, 4 mounting bolts, so any simulator you have at home this would basically fit into.
Yeah.
And we've also we're talking quality. For us, that means minimizing the amount of moving parts, because that's often what is giving the problems.
Yeah. I mean, these are very simple pedals from the setup. We have 2 very much exposed load cells here.
Well, the load cells have a 50 kilo capacity, and they're actually the same exact load cell for both the brake and the gas pedal. But we're only using a fraction of that, of course, in the actual braking and the gas. All right. But yeah, as you can see from these pedals, our goal isn't, with the pedals, the goal hasn't been a design issue, it's been more of a functionality issue. We want to have pedals that just work forever. So that has been our main focus on the pedals.
All right. I mean, they look pretty sturdy. I don't see anything that I would expect to break at any point ever, basically. Let's move on to the steering wheel that we see here. A Formula style steering wheel that you're using in the simulator. Tell us a little bit about it. What kind of features does it have, and what are your plans for this one?
Basically, I can say, to start off with, this is our, you can say, 3rd generation of our own wheel. The 1st generation, we had the SLI Pros, and then as time has gone on, we've tried to kind of keep up with the real Formula One. So now we have in this you're looking at here, we're having the sim display. So we've got all of the LEDs and the switches down here that work through the sim display together with the Slimax manager. So we've got, I don't even know how many buttons we have on here.
We could count them, let's see. I'm seeing 6 per side, that's 12, and then we have 2 in the back, that's 14 push buttons, right? And then we have these rotary switches, 3 of them. We have another 2 thumb rotaries, and we have magnetic shifter pedals on the back, also with an interesting construction here, pushing down on a button, but still using the magnetic shift release, basically. And then it's quite an interesting solution that you found for the clutch pedals, I guess, right?
Yeah, we're using the Hall sensors together with the magnets on the clutch paddles.
Yeah, maybe you can show it a little. I'll put in B-roll at this point anyway.
There's a spring inside here, so that's basically the same as all the other clutches out there. And then we've got the magnet system here that's, as you come closer to the wheel, you're coming closer to the hall sensor. It gives you more of the signal to the game. That's basically how it works.
Right.
So we've got 4 of our own LEDs on the wheel as well. And that works through the SlideMax program.
All right, thank you. Then next up, this was all the hardware that is being used. Well, not all of it. You have a seat and stuff in there as well. But let's talk about the software side of things a little. You're using iRacing.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little about what motivated that choice?
Yeah, well, I was telling you about our goal to always to have the motorsport more accessible, the real kind of motorsport. So for us, the realism is the deciding factor for iRacing.
Yeah, all right. And then I guess another thing that could play into the equation is that probably 10 years from now, iRacing will still be a thing, while most other companies, as it's like an ever-evolving product, and they're not going iteration over iteration, but just they're evolving, so they don't go RF1, RF2, RF3, something like that. And I guess that makes things easier also for you guys, right?
Yeah, well, we get the support we need, and basically it's the same thing that we need something that works all the time.
Yeah.
And iRacing has never failed us, so we're sticking to a good formula.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I guess this hasn't been there when you started, but now they have the McLaren Formula One car in the game that was added about, I don't know, 2 years ago, or when was it? 2-3 years ago? Something like that. Obviously wasn't there when you started many years earlier, but
we were using the Williams car first. But actually the graphics with the McLaren car is better for our simulator.
Yeah.
So the mirrors are a little higher up, so you get more of a realistic feeling.
Yeah, all right.
So the McLaren has worked out better for us.
Now let's talk a little bit about the company behind the simulator. So you said you wanted to make racing accessible to people. Can you elaborate on that, on what that means? How can people experience these simulators?
I guess you could say the end goal is to have race centers where we have maybe 10 or 15 of our simulators in one place. Where we can have company events, start our own club, get people down, get the word out. But in the meantime, when we're building up to this, we have what we call F1 experiences. So people come to us and we give them the whole introduction to the car and we actually use the Monza course. So we give them introduction to both the car and the course. Go through a little driving technique so that they feel comfortable getting into the simulator. And they drive for 40 minutes. And we're pretty proud of that because people with no experience at all, we can get them driving really good lap times in 40 minutes. So that's the rewarding part of it, is to get people to learn how to drive.
Yeah, that's very nice. And are you selling any of these products that you're making here, or are you planning on selling any?
We've had our products, some of them on our website for sale. But that hasn't been our focus. The focus has been making stuff that works for our simulator and works, as I said, problem-free for our customers that come here to drive. We have a plan in the future to start our own racing team and letting our drivers use our products, and then eventually maybe we can start selling on a more major scale. As of for now, we're focused on our own simulators right now.
Yeah, right. So you come from a background of passion for motorsports. Yeah. Right. Maybe it's interesting for our viewers to hear a little bit about that and how you got started with this whole thing. Because now we're just seeing, not the end product, but like a very evolved state. You've been at it for 10 years, what you said, right? Yeah. We're now seeing 2 full motion rigs with Formula One chassis and projector setups, like the whole shebang in the background. How did you start and why?
Well, I guess I kind of grew up with motorsport. I grew up in Connecticut in the United States, and as many of the viewers probably know, Lime Rock Park is in Connecticut, so I lived about 45 minutes from there. So every single major weekend I was there with the family and the camper and the frisbee and the grill.
Yeah.
So I kind of have the motorsport running through my veins. So yeah, it was 10 years ago. I got my Formula Ford license. Earlier than that even, but I really couldn't find a way to be involved in motorsport. I was too old to do the professional racing. So yeah, it was just about that time iRacing was being released. And when I got a taste of the iRacing, I knew right away that this has gotten so good that this is the time we should be starting a company with the virtual racing.
Yeah, and we're seeing right now also that simulated motorsports is gaining more and more track in the real world. We've had the Formula One esports series, I think based on the Codemasters Formula One game, right? We have on ACC is doing the Blancpain series very successfully, also being brought to us regularly by Chris Hay and Race Department, very kindly. Hey guys, good job that you're doing. I appreciate it.
Right. Well, in Sweden, it's been an official sport since 2007, virtual racing. But the way I see it is that there's been a lot of focus on getting the competitions together, but there hasn't been so much focus on the hardware. Well, that's kind of like where we're at. We want to take the sport to another level.
Yeah.
And if we're able to get the race center together, then we have the high quality, the whole experience in one place.
Yeah.
So to kind of raise the bar.
All right. I guess we're nearing the end of this interview. One last question now. If people want to experience this, obviously you're located here in Stockholm. How do they get in touch? What do they have to do in order to take a seat in one of these simulators?
Well, if you're visiting Stockholm anytime, or if you're from Sweden, it's v-racing.se, and we have contact information there. Just give me an email, and we'll book a time for you.
All right. Thank you very much, Derek.
Thank you.
And now I can't wait to take a seat myself. I haven't so far. I'm really excited now to get into it and see how it feels. So let's recap what we've got here in the simulator. A D-Box motion platform with 4 actuators, a Formula One style cockpit made from fiberglass, a custom-made set of load cell pedals, a Frex direct drive wheel with 16 Nm of holding torque, probably comparable to the Fanatec DD1, a custom-made Formula One steering wheel, a pixel warp triple projector setup with 160 degrees field of view on a curved screen, a surround sound system with a rear center speaker and subwoofer right behind you where the engine would be, and iRacing with a McLaren Honda MP430. The first thing that is very different from your rig at home is getting into the cockpit. Take off the wheel, sit on the side pods, then swing yourself in feet first until you're completely engulfed in the car with only your head sticking out. Put the wheel back on, adjust the seat and pedal position with electronic movers, and you're all set. When you get into a cockpit like this for the first time, it can be a bit of a claustrophobic experience, but you'll get used to it. Visibility is low and you can't really see much beyond the cockpit and the screen in front of you. In terms of audio, you won't hear much from the room either, so just sitting in the cockpit with the engine running already immerses you in the experience. When you book the F1 experience at v-racing.se, you'll usually get to drive at Monza, as it is probably the easiest to learn track in the Formula One calendar. However, I asked for Spa, so I got Spa. To get going, put the limiter on, put the car into gear and get on the gas. The clutch was set to automatic in order not to overwhelm inexperienced drivers. Once you're across the pit exit line, disable the pit limiter and get going. But be careful, there's a lot of power under the hood and no traction control. It's very easy to end your first stint in a wall after just a few meters. Once you reach 4th gear, you should be all set to floor it. You'll be fine until turn 1, which is probably where you've been at the first time. The 2-stage design of the brake pedal can really catch you out the first time you need to use it, and it takes some getting used to. On top of that, iRacing can be quite merciless, especially on the wrong setup. After some setup tweaks and quite a while of getting used to the new environment, I eventually got to a point where the driving became really enjoyable. This ride was only my second time in a full motion rig after a 2-lap stint at the circuit of Spa a couple years ago. That means I don't really have anything to compare it to, and since I didn't get a chance to fiddle with the settings, I can't really review any of the hardware used. What I can say is that the immersion of the setup is next to nothing I've tried so far. The wide field of view blocks out anything that isn't part of the simulation or a simulator. You can feel the car dip its nose in on the heavy braking, lean to the outside on the cornering, and you'll clearly notice how much the high curbs can unsettle the stiff Formula 1 car. Surprising to me was that the motion felt very natural right from the start and took very little getting used to. I believe it was decently set up to benefit the experience while staying away from any exaggerated trade show or game center settings. But a picture is worth 1,000 words, so here's what a lap of Spa looks like from inside the cockpit. Now, to be honest, I struggled to get full confidence in the car, and after hours of driving I was still babysitting it around the course. I didn't really dare to push it to get really fast lap times in, and when I tried I often ended up in a wall. Part of that may be because this car in iRacing is a really snappy one, part of it may be the lack of a good setup for the car. But there are certainly a couple of things in the setup of the simulator that could be improved as well. There's the 2-stage brake pedal with a spring in the first stage and a completely stiff second stage where you're pressing against the load cell. Personally, I'd prefer a couple of stiff rubber dampers instead of the spring to get a more progressively stiffening pedal with just a single stage. The force feedback of the Frax wheelbase might also benefit from some tweaks in the software and possibly also from a lighter steering wheel. v-racing's custom wheel is built like a tank, but that also makes it rather heavy. Or maybe it's just iRacing's force feedback. Either way, I wasn't getting the fast autocorrections that I'm used to from my DD1 at home, so I had to rely in part on visual cues to catch the slides. You could argue that the force feedback in some simulations may be over-communicative to make up for a lack of G-forces, and that in motion rigs you don't need as much communication coming from the wheel. However, the debug system does not rotate around the vertical axis and it can't really communicate when the rear is stepping out, so I think a little more feedback from the wheel would be nice. All of that being said, keep in mind that these complaints are on a rather high level, coming from someone always looking for perfection when it comes to sim racing hard and software. Also, the guys at v-racing seem to have an open ear for suggestions and are constantly aiming to improve the experience on all fronts. So I for one can't wait to get back into the cockpit on my next visit. In conclusion, I had an absolutely amazing day testing the simulator, and I absolutely recommend getting in touch with Derek and his colleagues at v-racing.se when you're in the Stockholm area to experience this simulator for yourself. If you've already been in the v-racing simulator or a similar one, share your experience down below in the comments section. I will also try to get back to you about any questions you may have left at this point. And that would be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I hope you have a wonderful day and see you in the next video.